Hi, good morning, Anumita.
Good morning.
Good.
Hello, good morning.
Audible? Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Great.
Morning. Good morning. Good morning, Pa Harry. Then good morning, Anumita.
Good morning. Wonderful to meet everyone.
Yeah, we're just waiting for people to sign up. It will take usually about 5 minutes, but we can have a bit of a chat if you like.
Sure.
Ambassador Sandeep is also here.
It's
Uh,
wonderful to meet you here.
Hi, Anumita. Good morning. Great
Hi.
to see
Hi.
you.
Good morning, Sandeep. So wonderful to see you.
Yes, same here, same here. Hello, Pa Harry. How are you?
I'm fine. Lot
fine,
happening.
thank you.
Yes, lots always happen. Sachin, let us know when we can start. You are muted.
Sorry, yeah. We'll give it about 5-6 minutes for everybody. They're just joining. You can see people, the numbers are going up. We'll get to about 35-40 and then we'll start. So, just giving you a little roundup of what we've been doing. This is the 8th episode, and we've been having pretty good response. This is for both Pa Harry as well as Anumita, that we've been doing this program now. It's been 8 weeks because it's every week. And we've been having students, a small percentage, but mostly journalists who are working. So many of them are on assignment on a given day. So on an average, we get about 40 to 50 joining the live session with Q&A, and then we record it, and then we run that program for the others who missed it during that time. And once we finish, we have 10 episodes at the moment planned, but we will maybe probably go up a little bit to 12 or 14. And once we do that, we will actually put this program together and then make it available for students in journalism schools and in universities across Indonesia. So, and the program would be provided to them free of cost. So it would be a good chance for the students also to hear from, senior journalists such as yourself, and also get a little bit on insight on the perspective between India and Indonesia. And I think that yesterday, for example, I was invited by Erlangga University to talk about how media plays a role in diplomatic relations and cultural relations between India and Indonesia. So basically, people are noticing that, that these kind of programs are happening. And they did call us because they heard about the India News Desk program. And I think, that's a nice way to reach out to the remote areas, because we have the person who runs this program, her name is Tika. She's on the call as well. She's the head of the India News Desk, and she has almost 600 media have been connected to us. But of course, about 250 are on a regular basis. They work, and they're all small newsrooms across the various provinces and states. And on an average, some of them have 5,000 to 10,000 readers. And some have more because they are more mainstream. But I think netizens and internet journalism has bloomed so much that there are a lot of people having websites that cover the kind of content we are talking about. It's not all about business and politics. It's also about culture, music, dance, Bollywood. So we want to make sure that we are able to provide all these people enough material and information that they can carry forward news stories in their own media. And I think Tika has done a great job in the last one. We've now exactly coming to 1 year because we launched this in November of last year. And we have managed to overturn the negative sentiment about the kind of news that is being covered. Because in the absence, not anything else, but the absence of availability of content, people were only covering, this accident happened there, that, natural disaster happened here, which is same situation here also in Indonesia as well, right? The bad news carries faster. And absence of neutral news or balanced news and good news was the problem. So we made sure that there's enough content that people can see. And now we've seen that about 70 to 80% of the news is either neutral or positive about the countries knowing about each other. And the other things, we can't do much about it because, that if disasters do happen, that has to be covered. but the focus has changed. People are understanding a little bit more about what is India, what is the connection. And I think our job is to be able to inform people what is the real connect between the two nations and what you can do with it going forward. And these are young journalists, so we are talking to the right audience. We're talking to people in the age group of 20 to 30, and they would be the future senior journalists. So therefore, I think our program is connecting the bridging also between the senior journalists of Indonesia and India, also to the younger generation. So just a little bit of a background for you. We're getting very close. I think in another 2-3 minutes we can start. Tika, you're here, right? Did you already send a reminder to the group? I think I saw a reminder. Yes.
Yes,
that is me.
already send a reminder to group.
Okay. Maybe Ambassador Sandeep, you can, would you like to just, okay, we can just do it during the call. We'll start in 2-3 minutes anyway. Dafa will also explain that this session is meant to be interactive. You can have a opening, and if you want to present any slides, you can. Don't have to.
Okay, well,
It can be a Q&A, and then Dafa will just take you through the format. Go ahead, Dafa. Just give us a slight background on the format of the event, of the call. Yeah. I think we can start, Dafa. Go ahead. We have got 31 already now. They'll add up. It'll come to about 35 to 40 usually.
okay, sure, Pak Sachin. We have more than 30 attendees and it is still going up. Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mr. Ambassador Sandeep, and good morning, Pak Sachin. Good morning, Anumita, and also good morning, Pak Harry Surjadi, for coming to this session. And good morning to everyone, to the attendees for today's session. So my name is Dafa, and I'm going to be the moderator here for our 8th session of Voices of Tomorrow, that we are going to talk about the environmental journalism. So it's really important to have that knowledge and to have that the ability to report our environmental condition, especially in Indonesia. So I'm going to start with Pak Sachin some words. So I'm going to Pak Sachin.
Thank you, Dafa. And terima kasih. Selamat pagi buat semuanya. Ini sebetulnya sesinya bilingual ya, karena ada tamu dari India yang biasanya bicara di bahasa Inggris, dan kalian di sini bisa menggunakan AI translation biar Anda bisa mengikuti dengan conversation, dan bisa juga Anda tulis pertanyaan di chat box. Good morning. This program is bilingual. I'm just saying that we will start the first session in English with Anumita, and then when Hari Surjadi comes on, he can choose to be bilingual. He can use between Bahasa and English, and we will be later on also converting this into subtitles so that everybody can follow it. I really look forward to the episode today, because I think environment is a very important topic, and even President Prabowo has said this in the United Nations address, that Indonesia is really committed towards how it will mitigate the risk that environment is carrying through the decarbonization, as well as many other initiatives, so make sure that we are able to protect our environment in a country which is actually very exposed to issues of environment. And I think we also play a leadership role in the rest of the world, seeing what Indonesia is doing and what India is doing. And these are two countries that have a lot of effort and activities in maintaining and managing issues related to the environment. I'd like to also thank Ambassador Sandeep, who I would invite to say a few words, because he has been instrumental in setting up this program. Pak Dubes, Sandeep Chakravorty, beliau yang sangat membantu kita untuk menjalankan program ini, Voices of Tomorrow. Beliau juga ada hadir hari ini, dan saya minta beliau bisa kasih beberapa kata untuk semua jurnalis yang ikut hari ini. Over to you, Ambassador Sandeep. You're on mute. Yeah.
Thank you, Sachin, and welcome to Anumita and Harry. I was just looking at a feature in Zoom. You see the transcript comes quite pretty well automatically. Yeah, I was comparing your words with the transcript. It was pretty good. And I think if you speak slowly, we can capture the transcript, without making much of an effort. So you can see that there's a button down there. Yeah. So, well, before we get into the main session, I just want to thank, first of all, Anumita and Harry. Anumita and I go back many, many years. In fact, since the time I used to work in an organization dealing with environment, so I know her since then. And she has been actually steadfastly dedicated to environmental reporting. I have known her, since I've known her, she has been with this organization and publication known as Down to Earth. And how many years? I don't know, maybe more than 3 decades. I think she has been associated with one organization, one of the most preeminent organizations in India dealing with environmental issues. In fact, I think her organization is synonymous with environmental consciousness in India. Before that, people did not even bother so much. And I think Center for Science and Environment is the pioneer and perhaps the go-to organization if anyone has issues with environment. Anumita and Harry, Sachin already briefed you on the history of this program. And we are very happy that we could add a session on environment. And one point which I want to make before I hand over to Dafa is that oftentimes environmental reporting is seen as being against the establishment, and you are always seen to be opposing very, very powerful interests. And that's why when an environmental journalist writes something, even if it is good for the people or good for Mother Earth or nature, or even if it is in consonance with the stated objectives. For instance, all our countries are committed to net zero and emission reduction. But if a journalist points out something, it is always seen in a negative way by powerful interests. And I think that is one word of caution which I'm sure both Harry and Anumita will impart to the young journalists who are attending this event, that how to do reporting without really getting people to target you. I think that is one aspect of environmental reporting which is very, very important. And we have known many stories where environmental reporters have been quite brutally targeted. I was reading today's Jakarta Post, and there is on the front page, there is a story. In fact, Anumita, you will be interested. I'll give you some Indonesian context. And the story says it is a AFP agency report. So that way, it's not a local journalist who is reporting. It's an AFP report. So there is a layer between the journalist and the story, which is good. And it says state projects blamed for rights abuses, deforestation. And it blames a law which came out in 2020 known as the Omnibus Law, which basically allowed easy approvals of projects and easy issuance of environmental clearances. And that is being now criticized for great environmental damage in Indonesia. As you know, Indonesia is one of the largest foresters countries in the world. But despite that, these forests are under a lot of peril from mining interests and from plantation interests, rubber, palm, coffee, and always, in the national narrative, this tussle between environmental protection and economic interest is going on a large scale, similar to India. But maybe the scales are bigger because the untapped environmental resources are huge still. In India, maybe, we have reached a point where there's not much to exploit anymore, but Indonesia still has lots to explore, a lot of national wealth, and that is a contested terrain. So I am very happy that it's a very, very topical and relevant subject to deal with in reporting, and nobody better than Anumita and Pahari to deal with the topic. So over to you, Padafa, to moderate today's session. Thank you very much once again for joining.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador Sandeep, for some words, and also Pak Sachin for opening this session of its Voice of Tomorrow. So, as Pak Sachin mentioned before, so this is a bilingual session. So we are going to lead this session with English first for Anumita session, and if it's more comfortable, we can use Bahasa for Pahari session after Anumita. So without further ado, we are going to move to the first session on Voices of Tomorrow here. We have Anumita. Good morning, Anumita.
Good morning.
So I'm going to read some of your brief introduction before you start doing this session. So Anumita Roychowdhury is an Executive Director, Research and Advocacy at the Center for Science and Environment, India. She is recognized for expertise in air pollution, clean and low carbon transport, sustainable built environments, and resilient urban habitats. She has led policy, research, and advocacy shaping our air quality management and sustainable mobility at city and state levels, and foster cross-learning across the Global South, including African cities' clean development roadmaps. She is a recipient of the Hagen Smith Clean Air Award. So without further ado, the time is yours.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Sandeep ji. This is amazing, um, this opportunity to be able to have this conversation with the media, and particularly those who are the communicators on the critical issues of development and environment. We have always felt that this is the body where you can really have amplification of the critical issues that need to shape our understanding, deepen our understanding, not only of the challenges, but as you very rightly said, Sandeep, that it is also about driving change. And to drive change, it is just not the problem that has to be the center of communication, but also the solutions that are taking shape across the global south. And that's the reason why we have always felt so that it is so important to build this kind of a platform where you can meet and exchange ideas, and especially with the communicators who are continuously shaping the change, because that's the powerful role that the media is playing all the time. So, from that perspective, and it is also very important that, as I said, that the future challenge and the ongoing challenge that we are already facing because of environment and the whole connection between the environment and development, the way things are unfolding, it's overwhelming. The speed of change is absolutely overwhelming. And the complexity of what we are noticing, because not only of the local environmental problems, but the global challenge of climate change, all of these coming together, and they have profound influence on the way we are, it is impacting us, but also at the same time, it is continuously challenging our development paradigm. So, within that, therefore, how do we do the storytelling? Because that is central to what we are discussing today. What is the nature of that storytelling? What is the human story in this that connects with the problem and connects with the solution, but at the same time helps to build the learning curve? So now environment is an omnibus. I mean, we really cannot start discussing environment in a totality. So what I thought that for today's conversation, if I can focus more on one very important agenda that is unfolding in the global south today, that is the urban agenda and the climate change and the local environmental change. This whole insidious connection between that. And so if I can focus on that, where we will try to understand the challenge, but more important, try and understand that how countries like India are also trying to resolve, they're trying to find solutions to the problem. There's a huge learning curve emerging in Indian cities today. So in that context, let me just share, I can show you some slides. Everything will not be the slides, but I'll just keep that in front and then do the conversation. So I'll just share my, just a moment. I'm just opening my, can you see my slides?
Yes, Anumita.
Okay. So I'll just do the slide share. Now, so as communicators today, and we have been in this now for so long, let's try and understand that what is that city conversation that we want to do, and the and how do we understand? Because the narrative today around cities is that we are really in a huge, huge urban boom. And especially when we look at Asia today, what they are saying that the 6 of the top 10 mega cities are going to be in Asia by 2035. And if you really look at the total urban, global urban population, the majority are going to be in Asia, in Asian cities. So you are actually going to be adding 1.2 billion, adding another India to Asia in the coming years. So, first, to understand the magnitude and the significance of the numbers, and that's very important part of the storytelling to convey to people that what is the magnitude of the problem that we're looking at. Very important that we keep talking about climate change and cities today, but from topicality point of view, the media needs to keep in mind that right now IPCC, which provides the intellectual foundation to the whole climate debate, uh, they are right now doing a special report only on cities and climate change, and which is to come up within a year now. So imagine so far IPCC, which was focusing only on different sectors of development to understand the implications for climate change and emissions and so forth. Now they're taking cities as an entity, that the cities as a powerful driver of how it's going to impact climate change. And in that, the double whammy is that while cities are increasingly becoming victims of extreme weather events, so what we are show you some of those slides, that the vulnerability to the urban floods, to urban heat island effects, the risk of, and which is, a huge risk to the infrastructure, and at a huge cost. And therefore, what it's essentially saying that now the people are going to be hugely impacted by the climate change in the cities, particularly where maximum number of people live. And this is going to cost, it's a huge development cost that will be imposed in terms of urban infrastructure. Now, if that is going to happen, so what does it mean for a storytelling? Now, it's very fascinating now how the media is picking up from all the science and the studies that are happening today, that when we also look at it, that how you combine the science of the change and then the reportage. And it's very important that how now the data, now we can do this kind of data crunching to show how in each city of India, the heat island effects are evolving. Now, these are Indian cities, but also look at Jakarta, that this has also been documented. So if you keep this in mind, so very clearly what you see here in Jakarta, there are over a period of time, what has been documented, that as the green areas, as the water bodies are receding, and your built areas are expanding, the heat effects are increasing as well because concrete's absorbing more heat, right? Now that is, so even in Delhi now, we are beginning to now show that how the heat is actually impacted by green areas and so forth. And it is just not that. The additional challenge of heat is that not only the fact that global warming is happening, heat island effects happening, but also the vehicles that we use, they also have a heat exhaust. The The air conditioners that we use that also have heat exhaust, industries have heat exhaust, and that is also contributing. And then you have the urban floods. Now, it is very well documented that how climate change. Now, this is where, again, the storytelling is all about that just, yes, because of the extreme weather events, we will see more of these incidents. But at the same time, what implication does it have for the urban design, for the urban infrastructure to mitigate and minimize this kind of risk? Another linkage that we want to make before we go to the solutions and the good practices, just want to highlight that what is defining the scope of the challenge. Now, while the global warming, climate change that we see as a global phenomenon, and often we find that story to be very distant from us. But then what is more local is what we are breathing all the time. And here, as you can see in Jakarta, for instance, that you can now see that how with growing urbanization, motorization, your emissions are increasing, and that has, and now it's pretty well documented what it means in terms of human health. But the same local pollutants can also be heat trappers and contribute to climate change. What is very important for media is data visualization. So you will, because that's what brings the strength to your story. So it is one thing to say, okay, air pollution, but when you show the pictures of lungs that the with black patches, or even the data when it is on a heat map, that how it shows that how it impacts the thing. So therefore, when you're doing the writing, the data visualization will also become very critical. Now, if these are therefore the challenge paradigm, then within that challenge, how do we then understand that what cities can do or what cities are already doing to contribute to stabilization? So because we now know that as cities are huge, because cities are where we are growing, and that's where we are going to see a lot more demand for energy, the consumptions that is going to increase. And so clearly, therefore, we are beginning to see that enormous challenge. But at the same time, the new studies that are coming up, for instance, from the IEA, they're also saying cities also have the huge mitigation potential in urban Asia. That if we can get the blueprint right, then all these disaster stories that everyone is talking about can be mitigated. And that's the story that we want to highlight. That's the story that we want to understand, that what is the opportunity of change across sectors, because it is just not one silver bullet that can fix the problem. So therefore, when we look at sectorally, let's go, and I'll focus on three critical sectors to present this story and for the good practices. So one is the whole mobility, because in the cities, that's where we travel. The motorization is very high. A lot of data has come up, how vehicle numbers are growing, emissions from vehicles are growing, and so forth. Now, therefore, what do we do? A very important learning from India here is the leapfrog principle, that only small incremental change will not help. So what does that really mean? So this means that we need now, so what has India done? Now, when we are talking about emission standards, which is supposed to reduce the emissions from vehicles, now so all the countries are going step by step. So most of the Asian countries meet Euro 1 emission standards for vehicles. So they go Euro 1, Euro 2, Euro 3, and so forth. But one of the very big decisions that India had taken was that so when they were at the Euro 4 level, the Euro 4 is equivalent to what Jakarta or Indonesia is at today. So when India was at that level, it took a decision that they will skip Euro 5 altogether, and they will go directly to Euro 6 within 3 years. So by 2020, India could take that leapfrog decision, and they harmonized with the European regulations that were in place in Europe at that point of time. Now, this is a very important principle that needs to take root in the Asian countries. So this is one very important part of the thing. Another thing is that when you are dealing with so many number of vehicles on the road, you also want to advance the way you want to do emission monitoring. Now, keep in mind that Delhi, Jakarta, these are few cities in Asia today who have already begun to think about how to apply more modern technology for proper emissions monitoring. So this is remote sensing monitoring pilots in Jakarta, in Delhi, and Kolkata has already implemented this in India, where you just have to drive your vehicle on the road, and these machines by the roadside are going to monitor what the emissions from your vehicles are like, and they are going to then take action accordingly. And this is a very important step forward because this is giving the direction of change to the rest of the Asian cities. The same way, in India today, like we all talk about old vehicles, we want to junk them, throw them away, and we are worried about the old vehicles because they also pollute a lot. But now Indian regulations have developed significantly to come up with a scrappage and the identification of end of life vehicles so that you can remove them from the fleet and reduce pollution. But at the same time, this is very critical, but the vehicles that you're throwing away, you also need to recover the material from that. So India now has a scrappage policy, and then they again take out the steel, aluminium, plastic, glass from the vehicles to put it back in the production. This circularity is critical to be able to, address the climate change and pollution. So now we have these regulations in mind, and these are the stories that we have to bring to the forefront and tell our governments that this is the direction of change, this is the learning that we already have. Another, and this is the very important future change that we are looking into the transport sector, is the zero emission transition. Now, India is already on that path. Jakarta, Indonesia already has an electric vehicle policy now. They are evolving in that direction. But in India, and this is where again a good practice emerging today, that with demand incentive program, we have really been able to accelerate, catalyze change in our vehicle market. And we are seeing steady increase in the number of electric vehicles and zero emission vehicles. In Delhi today, already 12% of the new vehicles are already electric vehicles. But the more important here is that the good practice that we have in India is about how we have, and this is a very unique thing in India, where we are not only doing electrification, but we are also combining electrification with public transport. So you are saying that I'm going to neutralize, to make mass transport carbon neutral and zero emission, and therefore Government of India has a very positive support for the electric bus program, and that has evolved in such a way that you will be surprised that the innovative financing strategies that India has adopted for electric bus program, in which, and I will just give example of one strategy. Instead of asking all the different cities of India to buy electric buses independently and separately, Government of India did an aggregation of the demand of all cities, and then that was the aggregated procurement that they did from the manufacturers. And as a result, the procurement price of the buses came down so much that they were even better sometimes than even the diesel buses. So the cost curve of the electric buses could be reduced significantly in India for scalability. And today, India is nearly on the path of 10,000 electric buses with an ambition of 50,000 electric buses. But these are the learning that we want to bring in, that in terms of infrastructure development, combining, and how do you have enablers and accelerators to move very quickly to a zero emission transition. This is the technology story. But at the same time, the climate change and pollution will also have to be solved through mobility strategies, that how you and I travel in our city. Do we have adequate public transport systems? Do we walk? Do we cycle to reduce our dependence on personal vehicles? And look at the advantages that the Asian cities have, including Jakarta, that despite the challenge, even today, the majority of your trips are actually walk trips, cycle trips, and public transport trips. And this is a very strong baseline that we have not only in your country, but also in our country, despite the motorization. So if we invest in the right infrastructure, so increasingly cities are moving towards more car-centric infrastructure, but that is changeable, and that change is already taking place. So when we look for learning across Asia, so we look at Delhi, the Jakarta Trans-Millennium, this is one of the best examples that are given today, even here. And this is the exchange of experience. And then the other cities in India. So, how the infrastructure will have to transform to enable the change, we have that example already. In fact, it is fascinating how in the Asian cities today, including Indian cities, we are now looking at how, even though the scale is still not at a desirable level, but the fact that the change of the direction of change has already started, that is an enormous potential that we are beginning to see when you are pedestrianizing, when you are creating new infrastructure. Even now, like Indian cities, they're coming up with parking policy. They're designing this policy as a restraint measure to reduce the traffic pressure on the road. I will not go into the detail of this, but I will tell you how. So I can just show you pictorially that how the before and after effects happen. So in that before and after, when you implement a good street design, you organize the traffic, you demarcate where people can park and walk, immediately you can see the transformation taking place and how that helps to change the behavior. Today, imagine with your Transmilano or for our metro system, the advantage and the opportunity that we have for transformation. In Delhi, for instance, which is one of the most extensive metro network, what we have found that almost 60% of urban area in Delhi today falls within 15 minutes walking distance from our MRTS station. So this means that about 80% of Delhiites are going to live within the 400-meter from some metro station. Now, with the infrastructure available, now if we focus more and more on improving accessibility around the metro stations, then you can see that people can be encouraged so much. A city like Bhubaneswar, another city in India, what they are now looking at to develop a low emission zone. So they have marked an area about 500, there's a radius that they have taken where they want to promote only clean vehicle, zero emission vehicle, walking and cycling and public transport. Now imagine if city after city you can have this kind of low emission zone once they get implemented, how powerful that change can be. So clearly, therefore, in the transport sector, we are looking at improving technology, the leapfrog principle that I talked about, zero emission transition through electrification and mobility transition by providing accessible, comfortable, safe public transport and with proper accessibility, safe access. This can be transformative, and the stories are already evolving in all our cities where we are beginning to see that change. But at the same time, very quickly, I will go through that. But the urban agenda is not only about transport, because you're continuously building and doing huge amount of construction today. Lot of buildings are being built, and what is coming out today that if we do not design our buildings for thermal comfort and reduce the need for air conditioning, and the air conditioning demand, including Indonesia, you can see in the table here, that is going to increase phenomenally in the coming years. And if that happens, then the energy demand will be huge. And that's a reason in India also we are looking at it. But that's why we are saying that today across cities of India, now you can't even make out, just not India, that where these buildings belong to. There are all these glass structures that are coming up. But so a building in Jakarta and a building in Bangalore or Chennai, they look the same. They do not reflect the bioclimatic advantages that you can leverage to reduce your air conditioned hours, like we used to do in our traditional buildings earlier. But even that is changing today. In fact, what we are seeing now that the countries, including Indonesia and in India, we are coming up with the energy conservation building codes, and they are asking for designing buildings for thermal comfort of the people. And this implementation has an enormous potential. So, like in India, India now has an India Cooling Action Plan, which has actually set a target for reducing cooling demand in the future. So imagine how powerful that will be to completely change the designs of the building that we construct in India, right? So Indonesia is also moving in that direction. You have energy standards, you have the cool roof program, you have mandated green building regulations. So the regulations have come. Now is the time to see that how implementation can be scaled up. And this is the kind of new generation and sustainable building designs that are evolving in India. So they are very different from the glass buildings that I have just shown you. And these are the buildings that are going to keep the heat low inside the building, make inside the building more comfortable. And therefore, the energy demand in these buildings are going to be much less than you will see in those glass buildings. Even in India now, today, they're adapting the local vernacular building material to in the new modern buildings. Now, these are the powerful changes. The other dimensions of the urban agenda is the waste and circularity. And this is a problem that all cities across Asia, Indonesia, and India, they're all facing. And these are huge source of pollution, contamination, and health risk. Then, therefore, now, but in India today, in fact, this is one of the largest waste program in the world that India has launched, which is the Swachh Bharat Mission. And with a huge funding that is available to back up the policy target. Here, the Swachh Bharat Mission 2.0, it is a performance-linked funding. So it is going to give money to the cities to do waste management with a mandate that by 2026, they will have to remove the waste in the waste dumps and the landfills. At the same time, they will have to achieve household level segregation, material recovery, so that the whole circularity can be brought into 100% segregation, 100% door-to-door collection, 100% scientific management. These have the regulatory targets for the cities with money attached to the, and that has catalyzed amazing changes. I'm just giving you a few examples here from Indian cities. Look at Surat, look at Bhopal, look at Indore. You know what these cities have done? That waste dump photograph that I have just shown you earlier, that how mountain of waste we create in our cities, these cities have removed those waste. They have recycled that waste and they have reclaimed the urban land from the landfills to create green areas. This is so powerful. And Indore is one of the best examples. How they have done it is they have achieved 100% segregation of waste. And then what they are doing, the wet waste, the compostable waste, they are now making biogas from that, compressed biogas from that waste, and they're running 400 buses. Just imagine the interconnectedness of the solutions. So you have managed your waste, you have reduced waste, but you're also utilizing your waste to create energy, and then you are using that energy to run your buses, and the buses that are meeting the public transport requirement. This is the interconnectedness of solutions that media now has to understand and project to deepen public and policy understanding. Not only that, today, even at institution, campus level, you will see that how decentralized waste management has become the norm. And it is increasingly, the campuses are moving in that direction. Yeah, these are the beginnings, but so there are different cities that they are showing amazing changes, and I can tell you a lot more about it after this. So decentralized waste management, imagine in a city like Thiruvananthapuram in Kerala, where the government have told the households that we will not collect your wet waste, the kitchen waste, you have to deal with it. We will only take your non-biodegradable waste. As a result, what has happened in Thiruvananthapuram, people themselves are either composting their kitchen waste or they are generating their own biogas to use in their own kitchen. So look how spin-offs happen, also at the consumer level, at the people's level, at the community level. So these are the changes. So waste is an economy. Waste is not a waste. Waste can come back to you as a resource. You can create new enterprise. You can create jobs and livelihood and a whole value chain that gets created around it. And that's what we are looking at for each of these areas. So as I've already given you the examples from the Indore, that how these bio-CNG, and we have the numbers now, and this makes the story so powerful, that how much of waste they have collected, how much of gas they have generated, and how much revenue the municipalities are earning from that. So it is also a positive, strong story for the government. So these are similarly, there are so many streams of waste. If you look at the construction, because we construct so many buildings, construction and the demolition waste. So today in India now, the whole recycling strategy has come up. So they are saying that when you are constructing, and the construction material and the waste that you create, instead of dumping them everywhere, what you can do, you can collect them. And now from the recycling waste plants, we are now beginning to get this kind of material that you can further reuse. So you are making paver blocks, and the municipalities are then again taking these back, and they're making pavements, they're making drains with the material created out of construction and demolition waste. And this is so powerful everywhere. There's a Chandigarh, Delhi, Pune, Chinchwad, everywhere you now have these very good examples coming up. In fact, this building that you see here, this is the new building of the Supreme Court of India. And this building has utilized recycled aggregates from the recycle plant for CNG plant. So just understand, therefore, that what is the new generation infrastructure development is means for the to be more climate resilient and for mitigation. So in a similar way, when I showed you the flood story earlier, how they are getting flooded. Now what, and also the waste water story, the decentralized model that now we are developing. So this Rajkot, this flooded park that you see here the cities are now connecting their green areas and park with the drainage. So what happens, the flood water then goes to these green areas, and that's where they percolate, and they then begin to recharge the groundwater. So these are being brought within the urban design system to build flood resilience. Similarly, on the left-hand side, the photographs that you're seeing here, that circularity and the decentralized action is also helping the low-income settlements. So here in this Agra area, where you can see, or Sabda area, where in the low-income settlements, they have now created the systems that recycle their local dirty water and bring the water back for further reuse. This is the kind of change that is being unleashed today. So we are also now looking at how to do urban design. So even the road designs are now being changed, and Delhi recently has adopted the street design guideline. They're saying when you're building roads, your drain along the road should also be designed with what they call bioswales, in which they capture the water, they percolate the water, instead of just throwing the water out of the city. So therefore, the same rainwater can then become part of your storage to address your water security, which is also emerging as a big issue in India. My final slide, in fact, one of the last point that I just want to make, that we now understand the story. So as I just told you, that the whole climate agenda, the urban agenda, the pollution agenda will require multi-sector action. So you will have to look for stories that in terms of transport, in waste, in construction, in industry, in power plants, what kind of action are being taken to be able to reduce the overall change. But at the same time, learn that what it means to bring change. Delhi, as you know, faces the pollution problem every year, and you have heard a lot about this. But Delhi is also a city that has also done the maximum to clean up its air. And that's a very interesting story. So Delhi is, in fact, what Delhi has done, all of it together, is very difficult to find another city who have done all of these together in India or in many parts of developing Asia. Now, so look at Delhi. So Delhi is a city where its entire public transport and local commercial transport was moved out of diesel to CNG, and now they are moving to electric vehicles. Delhi has leapfrogged to Euro 6 emission standards. Delhi has phased out its old vehicles, 10-year-old diesel, 15-year-old gasoline vehicles. there is a pollution charge on diesel vehicles. As a result, the diesel consumption has reduced dramatically in Delhi. So nearly 59% decline in the overall diesel consumption in the city, which is a highly polluting fuel. At the same time, Delhi has stopped all its coal power plants. There is no coal power plant anymore in Delhi. That has come to zero. At the same time, in the industrial sector, Delhi has banned coal, petcoke, furnace oil, and all other dirty fuels. Only natural gas and electricity are allowed in the industries of Delhi. These are not small measures. And because of that, Delhi has been able to reduce its pollution. So Delhi has been able to bend the pollution curve. So over a period of time, the pollution is coming down. And almost 46% of reduction we have already noticed. And yet, and that is the challenge that all of us have to keep in mind, that even after doing so much and with improvement, Delhi still faces the challenge of reducing its pollution by yet another 60% to meet the clean air standard. Now imagine how much more aggressive and ambitious the local action will now have to get that 60% cut. But then this 60% cut cannot come only from what Delhi alone can do, because pollution does not have boundary. Delhi might try to control its emission, but there is also pollution that is blowing in from other parts of India. And that's the story not only of India, that is also a story of Asia, that is also the story of Indonesia. So, this is the most powerful message of what I'm saying today, that we are beginning to see solutions taking shape. A lot of good practices are emerging in India, in Indonesia, and other parts of Asia. There's a huge learning curve. We can learn so much from each other to inform the solution. But what all of us, and as a media and a communicator, we need to convey is the scale and speed of the solution. That now the time is that all the solutions that we have talked about across sectors, for vehicle technology and fuel quality, for mobility transition, for clean energy and technology transition in industry, addressing solid fuels in households, addressing greening and green walling. And so all of these will require to be informed by the good practices where the several cities in India and other places have demonstrated change. So integrate that learning in the new learning curve, inform the roadmap, and then align the action and funding across all sectors to be able to meet the deliverables. So that's the point that we are really trying to make today, that let us therefore look at that big change for these three critical strategies, and let's find stories, understand the data, and understand the human story around energy transition, around mobility transition, and around circularity. Connect it with people, that how this is helping them to secure their health, how they are improving to cut their energy and electricity bill, that how it is improving their quality of life. So this is the narrative that we want to build today and learn from each other to take the action forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anumita, for your explanation and for your presentation today. So it's very clear, actionable, and data-driven, especially for your point on the climate change in India, and also you made some example in Indonesia also. And we have several questions for you to be asked, so to be answered. So this is from the first one. This is from Made Dinda Yandia Swari from Berita Jateng. In your view, how can India's approach to electrifying public transport be applied or serve as a lesson for countries like Indonesia, where political will to electrify mass transport is still weak?
Right. So electrification is now very big on our agenda. And so today we are really talking about achieving 30% electrification by 2030 overall. But within that, Like for instance, Niti Aayog has said that the electrification of the smaller vehicles, 2 and 3-wheelers, which you also see in Jakarta and Indonesia, they can be electrified several times more. You can even go up to 50 to 70% very quickly. Now, to be able to do that, the lesson from India is that one, that we have focused a lot on giving demand incentive to buy electric vehicles. So that is one very critical area that we have looked at, which has helped to build the demand for electric vehicles. But the innovation that we have seen more, as I was explaining earlier, is in connecting the demand incentive with the electrification of buses and the local commercial vehicles. So, for instance, so as I said, for the buses, the government of India has taken two critical decisions to enable the transition. One, as I had earlier said, how to aggregate the demand for electric buses together, so that by aggregating the demand, you help to create an economy of scale, so that the manufacturers can bid for much larger number of vehicles, and that helps to reduce the overall cost of procurement. So the capital cost of bus procurement can be reduced. But after that, Government of India has done yet another innovation. They are saying that we will support not only the capital cost of the bus, that when you purchase the bus, but we will also support the operation of the electric buses. So, which means that now the incentive will be designed in such a way that it will also support the per kilometer cost of running a bus for almost 12 years. Now, that is an amazingly powerful thing to do. So, you're not only helping to reduce the capital cost of the bus, but you're also supporting the operational cost of the electric buses. And these are the innovations. And this is the government of India. But then you also have state governments like Gujarat government, who are also giving additional viability gap funding for buses to operate. So these are the fiscal instruments that need to support regulations. And that is the big learning.
Thank you so much for your answer, Miss. So we have two more questions here because of the time limitation before we move to the Pak Harry Surjadi session. So the second question is what are the challenge India face from electrification and effort to phase out fossil energy power plants?
Right. Yes, that is it's a question that keeps coming to us all the time, because people keep asking that if you are sourcing your electricity from the coal power plants, then the emissions will remain, right? So let me answer this. So, for instance, in India, studies have already been conducted which shows that if you compare life cycle emissions of an electric vehicle, taking into account the emissions from the power plant, and you also consider the same for the internal combustion engines that run on gasoline and diesel, that even at the current energy mix in India, where about 70% of our electricity is from coal power plants, even at the current level, the emissions from electric vehicles are lower than the diesel and gasoline vehicles. So this is a very clear study that has come from a combined study of International Council of Clean Transportation and IIT Kanpur. And so that is one. Second is that keep in mind that for internal combustion engines, you have to apply emission control in each and every tailpipe of billions of vehicles that are running in your city. So all your vehicles have a tailpipe emitting some pollution, right? And you are trying best to control that with emission control system by improving emission standards. But electrification helps to make the tailpipe emission absolutely zero. So the tailpipe of an electric vehicle will have a zero emission, right? So what you can do, so while the tailpipe, the vehicle itself becomes zero emission in your country and in your city, the power plant that you are from your sourcing the pollution, there you put super emission control. So your first, your electricity, the coal power plants, they need to move to supercritical technology so that your power plant also become more efficient and less polluting. And then your renewable energy portfolio. The most important advantage of electric vehicle is that as your electricity grid continues to bring more and more renewable energy into the grid, right? Then without changing your upstream infrastructure, your electric vehicle will continue to get cleaner and cleaner as your grid gets cleaner. In fact, I'll just give you an example. Ethiopia is now one country in the world. It's also a developing country like us, and with a low and much lower income today. But they have taken a decision to ban import of all internal combustion engine, and they are importing only electric vehicles because they don't produce vehicles, so they only import. And imagine, therefore, if their vehicles are going to become all electric, their source of electricity is only hydropower, okay, so which is renewable. But they are also moving towards solar. So this combination of renewable energy and electricity and electric vehicle gives you the best answer.
Thank you so much, Anumita, for your answer. So this is the last question, and probably this is kind of taking point of view from the media side. So in Indonesia, there's a ban on mining on small island. However, the government still proceed with mining activities and even issues permit. How can the media report on this without appearing to be against the government? Would you like to give us some tips and how we can approach these sensitive topics?
I know, because this is highly sensitive, and often, the narrative of protest does not help always. It is more important to focus on that what the alternative and what the roadmap should be. So if you push for so therefore the one, of course, is the to look for that what are the solutions around that issue, and whether we are adequately building knowledge, data to make a more positive visibility around those issues, right? For instance, I mean, you can be, so the mining issue can be positioned within just transition framework, in which you can say that Indonesia in the future will be, I'm talking about, say, let's take coal, because mining is so many kind of mining. Say for instance, coal mining. Now, if Indonesia has the roadmap for renewable energy, and like India has set a target that 500 megawatt of renewable energy by 2030 and so forth. So you have a roadmap for that, so which means that this should begin to reduce the share of coal in the energy mix. Therefore, does government of Indonesia have a roadmap for a just transition framework, that how do you therefore create more alternative jobs in the renewable sector to absorb the labor force from the coal mines to the renewable sector? That's one. Second, if you can also establish that how the coal mines which are going to get spent, that how you do restoration and how do you recover that land, and how do you fix responsibility for that restoration of the land, and therefore the benefits in terms of economy, in terms of job, in terms of climate resilience, and how that before after can help. Second, suppose now Indonesia also has minerals that are going to be used for battery manufacturing in the future, right? So now already globally, we are talking about adoption of sustainable mining practices as part of the battery mineral, because keep in mind, and this is a big story, that European Union has already adopted battery passport regulation. Even India is also now have announced that they are also going to do that. Now, what does battery passport mean? That all the EV vehicle manufacturers will have to declare the entire life cycle of the minerals that have been used for battery production. So they will have to declare that whether the minerals that they have used for production of battery have been sourced from sustainably mined area or not, right? Now, so these are the safeguards that are coming in as part of regulation. So if as media can create the noise right now about the positive regulations that are needed and the safeguards that need to be put in place, so you can change the narrative in so many different ways. It does not just have to be a narrative of doomsday, mines are just destroying everything. That narrative does not help so much to drive solution. Focus on the solution and build the agenda around that, build the excitement around that.
Thank you so much, Anumita, for your answer. That's very interesting how we, as a media, for our first step is noise right now with positive news, so we can amplify and we can find it easily to have to report that environmental, especially in environmental journalism. Thank you so much, Anumita, for your session and for your answer of some question from the attendees here. I apologize to the all participant if your question is not answered yet. So we can move to the second session. Selamat pagi menjelang siang, Bapak Harry Surjadi.
Selamat siang.
Selamat siang. Baik Pak, jadi untuk sesi berikutnya akan dibawakan oleh Bapak Harry Surjadi. Saya mohon izin untuk membacakan sedikit profil untuk dari Bapak Harry. Bapak Harry merupakan seorang jurnalis dengan pengalaman lebih dari 25 tahun yang berfokus dengan isu-isu lingkungan. Beliau dikenal luas dengan kiprahnya dalam mengembangkan gerakan jurnalisme warga, terutama melalui peningkatan kapasitas penulisan, komunikasi lingkungan, dan juga keterlibatan media. Bapak Harry telah memimpin berbagai pelatihan dan lokakarya tentang jurnalisme, lingkungan dan sains, hubungan media, serta strategi komunikasi baik di Indonesia maupun di berbagai negara. Beliau merupakan penerima Knight International Journalism Fellowship sebanyak 2 kali dari International Center for Journalism. Baik, Bapak Harry, kepada Bapak dipersilakan.
Baik, terima kasih, Dafa. I would like to thank also to Sachin and the team of India News Desk, especially Tika, who contact me for this session, and also Indian Ambassador Sandeep, Pak Sandeep, thank you, and Anumita, the Indian journalist, very famous journalist in India. Thank you. And I'm sorry, I will speak in English, and you probably can use the AI for translation, automatic translation. Let me share my screen, my presentation. Stop presentation. Can you see it? Yes, I guess.
Yes, Pak.
Oke. Saya akan coba berbagi pengalaman dan beberapa tips untuk teman-teman. Sebagian saya kenal wajah-wajah yang familiar. Mungkin sudah pernah mengikuti presentasi saya ini, tapi silakan nanti kalau ada pertanyaan. Baik, topiknya bagaimana sih meliput topik lingkungan. Tadi ada pertanyaan menarik yang disampaikan, bagaimana meliput isu nikel, tambang nikel di pulau kecil tanpa harus terlihat bermusuhan dengan pemerintah. Ya toh. Nanti saya coba jawab juga. Baik. Pertama, sangat mendasar adalah apa sih jurnalisme lingkungan itu? Banyak reporter, jurnalis merasa itu hanya liputan-liputan biasa saja yang topiknya lingkungan. seperti juga liputan olahraga, liputan ekonomi, liputan kriminal, semua itu serupa. Kurang lebih pemahaman teman-teman jurnalis yang belum spesialisasi di isu lingkungan seperti itu. Ya. Jurnalisme lingkungan satu aliran jurnalisme saja dengan pokok bahasan isu lingkungan hidup yang hasilnya adalah ada berita lingkungan kalau ada peristiwa. Nah, itu yang membedakan yang betul-betul jurnalisme lingkungan. Saya ada satu definisi lagi yang saya ambil dari Asian Forum of Environmental Journalists buku yang judulnya Reporting the Environment Handbook for Journalists, itu untuk Asia. Itu buku lama sekali, tapi saya kutip definisinya. Menurut buku itu, definisi jurnalisme lingkungan adalah liputan yang mencakup pokok bahasan kesehatan, ekonomi, politik, perdagangan, development, pembangunan, sumber daya alam, dan juga masalah sains. Ya, jadi tidak sesederhana, liputan olahraga, liputan ekonomi, liputan politik. Tidak seperti itu. Karena liputan lingkungan itu akan berkaitan dengan ekonomi, kesehatan, politik, perdagangan, pembangunan. Semua itu ada angle lingkungannya. Ya. Jadi ini definisi yang lebih luas dan berdasarkan pengalaman saya meliput isu lingkungan lebih dari 25 tahun. Saya mulai spesialisasi itu awal tahun 90-an. Berarti sudah mungkin 30 tahun lebih ya spesialisasi lingkungan. Dan definisi ini tidak cukup untuk menggambarkan apa yang saya kerjakan. Saya punya satu definisi lagi yang saya ambil dari bukunya Michael Fromm, judulnya Green Ink. Green Ink, buku yang bagus. Kalau teman-teman ingin mencoba membacanya, dan kalau punya coba baca, judulnya Green Ink, ya itu buku yang bagus. Michael Fromm ini adalah jurnalis lingkungan, awalnya bekerja untuk majalah HPH di Amerika, tapi kemudian dianggap sangat advokasi, kemudian dia dipecat, dan kemudian dia menjadi dosen khusus spesialisasi untuk environmental journalism. Michael menulis seperti ini. Bahkan ini di halaman-halaman awal di introduction, belum introduction, bahkan di pendahuluan. Dalam bahasa Inggris, karena kalau saya terjemahkan agak sedikit bergeser definisinya. Jadi Michael Fromm mendefinisikan, I define environmental journalism as writing with purpose. Yang saya warnai merah itu menjadi hal yang penting. Writing with purpose, menulis dengan purpose. Purpose itu bukan sekedar tujuan, tapi purpose itu akan berarti tujuan yang akan mempengaruhi langkah-langkah kita untuk mencapai tujuan itu. Ya, itu purpose. Belum selesai, itu baru sepotong. Designed to present the public with sound, accurate data as the basis of informed participation in the process of decision making on environmental, itu satu kalimat. Katanya liputan lingkungan atau jurnalisme lingkungan ini dirancang untuk menyajikan kepada publik dengan data yang akurat dan masuk di akal. Ya. Sebagai apa? Untuk apa kita menyampaikan itu? Sebagai dasar dari partisipasi, informed participation. Informed participation artinya bagaimana publik itu bisa ada ruang untuk berpartisipasi terkait dengan pengambilan keputusan isu lingkungan. Ya, misalnya ambil contoh. Sekarang ada tren pemerintah itu akan mengatasi persoalan sampah dengan waste to energy. Bagaimana sampah itu dibakar, katanya menghasilkan energi. Tapi tidak ada bagaimana publik yang kalau tidak setuju. Harusnya ada ruang-ruang untuk berpartisipasi. Dan kalau tidak inform publik, mungkin mereka bilang ini sesuatu yang bagus. Ya, banyak persoalan lingkungan dilihat sebagai sesuatu yang bagus ketika publik itu tidak inform, tidak tahu, tidak diberitahu. Itu baru kalimat pertama ya. Itu yang saya praktekkan, nanti saya beri contoh. It requires an understanding of the nature and the purpose of mass communication. Untuk itu dibutuhkan pemahaman mengenai bagaimana tujuan dan juga sifat-sifat komunikasi massa. Media itu adalah komunikasi massa. Ya, komunikasi massa, menjangkau banyak orang. Kemudian dilanjutkan, an ability to research and to report finding with accuracy. Dan juga kemampuan untuk meriset, bukan seperti ilmuwan meriset, tapi banyak persoalan lingkungan itu harus kita gali betul-betul. Kita cari informasi sebenarnya, fakta-fakta sebenarnya, dan kemudian melaporkan temuan-temuan itu dengan akurat. Sudah tentu, terutama untuk yang bukan hanya untuk jurnalis cetak nulis ya, dan juga kemampuan a love of language. Bagaimana kita bisa menggunakan bahasa Indonesia dengan baik, yang dengan benar, sebagai semua itu sebagai bagian bagaimana kita bisa mengekspresikan apa yang mau kita sampaikan dengan jernih, dengan jelas. Masih ada lagi kebutuhannya. It requires more than learning how to write. Dibutuhkan bukan sekedar bagaimana menulis, tapi learning the power of emotion and imagery. Tapi bagaimana kita paham mengenai kekuatan emosi dan imajinasi ini. Berpikir, not think to think not simply of who, what, when, where, and why. Tidak berpikir sesederhana 5W1H saja, tapi berpikir utuh with breadth and perspective, dengan lebar dan kemudian dengan perspektif yang benar. Itu definisinya. Yang saya warnai merah itu sesuatu yang penting. Apa maksudnya? Writing with purpose. Ketika saya memulai rencana liputan lingkungan, saya punya purpose. Misalnya ambil contoh. Saya pernah buat liputan, isunya adalah ada 2 perusahaan di bawah Dewan Kelautan Nasional akan mengimpor bahan galian dari Singapura untuk mereklamasi Pulau Pelambung di Kepulauan Seribu. Purpose saya adalah rencana itu harus batal. Itu purpose saya. Berdasarkan purpose itu, dan terkait dengan informed participation, saya memikirkan untuk mencapai purpose itu, informasi apa saja yang saya butuhkan untuk saya sampaikan, dan ketika saya sampaikan, maka publik itu menjadi informed dan bergerak. Inform ya, inform. Ketika mereka inform, mereka paham di mana salahnya, di mana benarnya. Jadi, purpose itu memandu saya, informasi apa, fakta-fakta apa, data-data apa, angka apa, dan siapa yang harus saya hubungi supaya the public inform. Jadi, harus inform. Audiens saya menjadi inform. Waktu itu saya masih di Kompas. Ya. Dan kemudian saya carilah informasi-informasi banyak itu. Ada banyak detail informasi sebenarnya, misalnya saya, karena di proposal itu tertulis mengimport marine clay. Lalu saya cari ada tidak penelitian mengenai lumpur-lumpur di pesisir laut di Pulau Singapura itu. Ada, dan sudah terkontaminasi logam berat. Ya. Banyak lagi semua saya cari informasi itu supaya the public informed. Dan kemudian saya juga kalau tidak ada datanya saya minta misalnya saya tidak bisa ke Singapura untuk melihat mana sih bahan galian yang akan dikirim ke Indonesia. Saya mendorong Kementerian Lingkungan Hidup untuk berangkat ke sana, mengambil sampel dan memeriksa. Hasilnya bahan galian yang konon akan diimpor itu diekspor ke Indonesia itu sudah terkontaminasi logam berat juga. Akhirnya, ya siapa yang menggagalkan? Ada demo masyarakat Melayu di Pekanbaru memprotes, minta gubernur untuk menolak rencana itu. Ya. Kenapa? Karena mereka sih inform. Karena ada resiko bahan galian yang akan digunakan untuk mereklamasi Pulau Pelambung itu sudah mengandung limbah B3. Itu akal-akalan Singapura untuk mengekspor limbah B3 supaya tidak ada di Singapura. Ya. Lalu kemudian bagaimana mereka bisa tergerak dengan cerita. Dengan cerita. Storytelling itu penting karena semua persoalan lingkungan di Indonesia itu akibat adanya manusia. Kalau dunia ini tidak ada manusia, maka dunia ini akan aman, tentram, damai semua. Ya, tapi karena ada manusia, maka dunia menghadapi berbagai bencana lingkungan, termasuk salah satunya perubahan iklim. Oke, ini mengenai definisi yang saya praktekkan seperti itu. Oke, sekarang saya mau pertanyaan dulu. Kalau ada pertanyaan interaktif, satu saja kalau ada pertanyaan. Silakan, ada tidak pertanyaan? Bisa aktifkan speaker supaya interaktif.
Baik, terima kasih Pak Harry Surjadi. Mungkin boleh teman-teman
Satu pertanyaan
peserta.
singkat.
Saya bertanya, Pak.
Boleh. Silakan.
Izinkan saya Yusuf Harifai dari Times Indonesia bertanya,
Ya.
bagaimana mengatasi apa istilahnya intimidasi, Pak, yang sering saya dapatkan ketika saya meliput misal tambang ilegal dan kerusakan lingkungan yang diakibatkan dari tambang letter C, karena di wilayah kami itu banyak pegunungan yang di dalamnya ada kayak emas dan batu bara begitu, Pak. Ini ketika saya ke sana
Oke.
pasti mendapatkan intimidasi
Ancaman
dan
toh?
bahkan
Ya.
kamera saya pernah direbut, Pak.
Oke.
Itu saja, Pak.
Strateginya adalah jangan liputan sendirian. Oke. Jangan liputan sendirian. Kalau cukup baik dengan kenal dengan pejabat daerah, ajak mereka menemani. Itu dua hal. Yang ketiga, coba datang bukan tujuannya untuk meliput dulu. Observasi saja. Observasi, ketemu dengan masyarakat yang kontra, pasti ada masyarakat yang kontra. Ngobrollah dengan mereka dulu. Lalu bisa minta masyarakat itu jangan hanya satu orang, tapi sekelompok orang mengantar ke lokasi untuk melihat lokasi. Nah, seperti itu. Rasanya sih kalau kita punya strategi seperti itu cukup aman. Dan jangan datang-datang langsung dari kostum saja sudah ada tulisan pakai jaket pers. Kemudian name tag-nya terlihat pers. Lah itu kan sudah tanda-tanda, lah ini ada sesuatu ini. Jangan seperti itu. Kalau ada 10 orang reporter sama-sama, berangkatlah sama-sama. Mereka akan ragu-ragu juga untuk mengintimidasi. Ya, itu tips dari saya. Karena agak panjang ini saya lanjutkan dulu. Nanti saya jawab lagi pertanyaan setelah presentasinya. Oke. Menjadi jurnalis spesialisasi liputan lingkungan bukan sekedar tahu jurnalisme. Tidak cukup. Berdasarkan pengalaman saya tidak cukup hanya tahu mengenai jurnalisme. Oke, jadi perlu ada banyak pengetahuan lain. Paling tidak paham mengenai ekologi, mengenai biologi, mengenai hutan bukan sekedar pohon ya, tapi juga spesies-spesies. Mengenai kimia, ada logam berat, merkuri dan macam-macam. Mengenai ekonomi dan juga sosiologi bahkan politik. Bentar lagi bulan ini akan ada COP UNFCCC di Belém di Brazil. Itu semua adalah angle politik semua di negosiasi internasional. Tahu juga misalnya, ada yang tahu tidak bedanya penyu dan kura-kura? Misalnya, harus tahu jurnalis lingkungan itu kalau ditanya apa bedanya penyu dan kura-kura. Jangan sampai salah tulis. Kalau salah tulis kan kasihan yang baca, kasihan yang menonton program teman-teman. Tidak bisa membedakan penyu dan kura-kura. Jadi misinformasi nanti. Kemudian kata orang, menurut saya tidak ya, liputan lingkungan itu tidak mudah. Karena seringkali persoalan lingkungan itu kompleks, complicated, tidak sesederhana. Misalnya mengenai sampah. Tidak sesederhana mengenai sampah, oh iya ada solusinya. Ada recycle ekonomi. Lah, ada kemudian juga ada yang dipraktekkan itu recycle ekonomi. Kemudian ada yang mengangkat bank sampah itu salah satu solusi persoalan sampah. Salah. Itu hanya recycle ekonomi, bukan circular ekonomi. Ya, harus paham juga. Tidak mudah, kompleks, complicated, rumit, dan kontroversial. Saya menjawab tadi pertanyaan bagaimana meliput nikel tanpa harus bertentangan, seakan-akan bertentangan dengan pemerintah. Ingat, jurnalis itu hanya melaporkan fakta. Yang biasanya kemudian diprotes karena jurnalis memasukkan opininya. Ini sudah ngawur banyak kalau nonton laporan langsung televisi itu. Itu namanya reporter di lapangan. Semua yang dia laporkan itu 90%, 80-90% itu opininya dia mengenai yang dia liput. Bukan mengenai fakta apa yang dia dapat. Coba saja perhatikan. Jadi ketika meliput nikel, datang ke lokasi dengan persiapan ya, yang tidak bahkan liputan untuk galian C saja berisiko, apalagi nikel. Datang ke lokasi, laporkan fakta saja tanpa ada embel-embel pendapat-pendapat dari reporternya atau dari editor atau siapapun. Itu caranya. Kemudian liputan lingkungan juga kadang tidak pasti atau journalism of uncertainty. Mengapa misalnya dulu ya DDT atau untuk mengatasi malaria, nyamuk dan macam-macam itu kan diciptakanlah DDT. Itu sesuatu yang sangat dibanggakan. Ternyata ada dampaknya. Itu sesuatu yang tidak pasti. Termasuk juga produk-produk transgenik misalnya. Karena tidak pasti, betul tidak ini transgenik itu bisa merugikan kesehatan atau mikroplastik itu merugikan kesehatan, iya atau bukan. Dan liputan lingkungan juga kompleks, bukan hanya menyangkut masalah lingkungan, tapi juga sosial, ekonomi, politik, kejahatan, dan semuanya. Termasuk illegal logging, illegal mining, itu kan semua kejahatan juga bukan sekedar lingkungan, tapi ada politiknya juga. Dan seringkali, bukan hanya kadang, liputan lingkungan sangat teknis. Ya, itu beberapa gambaran. Selain tadi sangat teknis, berarti teman-teman itu harus belajar. Ini tugasnya. Kalau serius ingin jadi jurnalis lingkungan yang profesional, harus paham afforestasi itu apa, deforestasi itu apa, reforestasi apa, dan semua satu persatu itu harus dipahami. Efek rumah kaca itu apa, gas rumah kaca itu apa, semua termasuk juga sering pasti teman-teman pembangunan yang berkelanjutan, sustainable development. Apa itu? Itu harus dipahami. Selain itu, juga ada prinsip-prinsip lingkungan, sustainability principle, precautionary principle, polluters pays principle, green consumer principle, dan semua ini juga harus bisa dipahami dengan baik supaya tidak salah memberikan informasi kepada publik. Oke, pertanyaan dulu. Silakan, ada yang bertanya? Atau saya ambil satu dari chat di chat.
Boleh Pak, dari yang tadi itu masih ada yang tadi
Iya.
belum.
Yang mana nih?
Mungkin boleh dari
Yang
Bapak
paling
Fahri.
terakhir aja ya, saya lihat
Boleh,
ya.
boleh dari Bapak
Jadi ada
Fahri
pertanyaan
Zulfikar.
dari Fahri Zulfikar. Bagaimana cara jurnalisme lingkungan bisa membangun kesadaran masyarakat secara mendasar? Sebagai contoh, banyak masyarakat mungkin sudah sangat concern dan bahkan menjadi aktivis untuk melawan kerusakan lingkungan seperti tambang. Namun di sisi lain, dalam keseharian masih banyak yang menumpuk sampah, limbah, dan membuang puntung rokok, dan seterusnya. Oke, jadi kembali tadi sudah saya sampaikan, persoalan lingkungan itu persoalan perilaku manusia. Ya, misalnya masalah air saja, memanfaatkan air saja ya. Coba perhatikan kalau teman-teman makan di restoran. Lihat meja mana yang air minumnya tersisa. Bahkan termasuk esnya, es campurnya tersisa. Itu petanda ketidakpedulian, perilaku tidak peduli pada lingkungan. Karena tidak betul menghargai betapa pentingnya air. Harusnya sudah ambil sekian, harus dihabiskan. Termasuk juga kalau di pesta-pesta ada makanan, ambil banyak-banyak, tersisa sampai separuh piring. Apakah itu satu perilaku? Dan apakah mereka orang-orang yang terdidik? Iya, orang yang terdidik. Tapi perilakunya seperti itu. Bagaimana caranya? Salah satunya adalah untuk mengubah perilaku dengan storytelling. Ini akan panjang kalau saya cerita. Terus storytelling itu apa? Mengapa bisa mengubah perilaku? Nanti kalau ada kesempatan kita lanjut lagi. Saya share lagi presentasi saya selanjutnya ya. Oke. Nah, saya mau kasih tips dan satu semacam checklist. Kalau teman-teman mulai punya topik, bagaimana caranya menentukan topik apa yang mau diliput? Biasanya jurnalis berpikir mengenai ada persoalan apa sih? Dan pahami betul-betul persoalannya apa. Misalnya persoalan limbah rumah sakit. Nanti akan jadi contoh. Soalan limbah rumah sakit. Ada yang pernah terpikirkan tidak? Ada yang pernah meliput tidak limbah rumah sakit? Dikemanakan limbah yang penuh dengan penyakit itu? Pernah tidak? Itu liputan yang menarik loh. Dan tidak sulit. Pakailah checklist ini. Ya, pertama, kalau tahu misalnya purpose-nya apa? Purpose-nya tujuannya adalah semua rumah sakit di kota saya, termasuk juga klinik-klinik, mengikuti aturan-aturan penanganan limbah medis dan limbah lainnya. Karena bahaya kalau tidak dikelola dengan baik kan bisa menularkan penyakit kemana-mana. Itu purpose-nya. Kemudian kita ketika liputan, jurnalis ketika liputan, itu sebenarnya menjawab pertanyaan pembaca, pendengar, atau pemirsa kita. Apa sih yang mereka tanyakan terkait dengan limbah rumah sakit? Pakailah pedoman 5W1H ini. Ya. 5W1H itu berbagi suami, saya bilang. 5 wives, 1 husband, katanya. Bagaimana memanfaatkan dengan pertanyaan itu membuat pertanyaan yang ditanyakan oleh audiens teman-teman. Tapi ada 4 pertanyaan yang paling penting yang harus selalu ada dalam liputan lingkungan, ada di laporan kita. Yang pertama, mengapa itu penting? Why it is it important? Mengapa memahami mengapa pengelolaan limbah rumah sakit itu penting? Nah, kita tahu jawabannya ya. Carilah ahlinya. What does it mean to me? Apa artinya buat saya? Karena kita ingin mengaitkan ada loh hubungannya. Kalau limbah rumah sakit itu tidak dikelola dengan baik, maka akan menularkan penyakit-penyakit yang dibawa, yang dikumpulkan oleh rumah sakit ke banyak orang, terutama penduduk-penduduk di sekitar rumah sakit, yang tinggal di sekitar rumah sakit. Kemudian pertanyaan yang ketiga, what can or should I do about it? Apa yang bisa harus saya lakukan? Ini yang mendorong teman-teman, audiensnya teman-teman itu mungkin berubah perilakunya atau mendorong, memprotes, dan berusaha terlibat dalam pengambilan keputusan, informed participation. Ya. Yang keempat, what is the point? Apa intinya? Apa yang harus saya pahami? Ini pertanyaan audiensnya. Sampaikanlah, kalau limbah rumah sakit itu tidak dikelola dengan baik dan tidak diawasi pemerintah, maka akan banyak orang yang jatuh sakit. Rumah sakitnya kaya raya nanti. Mahal toh kalau jatuh sakit. Kemudian juga pastikan ada referensi-referensi, ada aturan, ada kemudian aspek sains dari limbah medis dan non-medis. Kemudian tentukan siapa narasumbernya. Dan jangan lupa ke lapangan. Sebelum minta wawancara dengan direktur rumah sakit, masuk ke rumah sakit, keliling ke rumah sakit. Bagaimana para suster dokter itu ketika selesai memeriksa orang, kemudian sampahnya dibuang kemana? Kemudian siapa yang mengumpulkan? Ditaruh kemana itu kapas-kapas atau jarum suntik bekas itu? Dibuang kemana? Kemana itu semua? Itu dilihat dulu, diobservasi. Ya. Kemudian juga ambil videonya. Barulah wawancara ke narasumber. Itu tipsnya. Ini contohnya liputan limbah rumah sakit. Ini saya sudah buatkan apa saja yang perlu dilihat. Nanti ini akan dibagikan, silakan teman-teman mempraktekkannya. Karena di setiap kota domisili teman-teman itu ada rumah sakit dan klinik. Kan banyak sekali klinik itu. Klinik untuk analisis darah misalnya, untuk periksa darah. Itu kan diambil darah kita. Terus kemana sisanya setelah dianalisis itu? Rumah sakit apa lagi? Semua yang sakit itu diambil darahnya. Itu mengandung penyakit loh. Lalu dikemanakan itu? Ini semua sudah ada. Nanti dibagikan aja, saya bagikan. Bagaimana kemudian teman-teman tinggal mempraktekkan ini. Ya, pertanyaan dulu sampai sini. Saya ambil dari sini aja.
Ada
kalau
pertanyaan kembali Pak, ya dari kolom komentar Pak.
Nah,
Dari
yang paling siapa? Kau pilihlah.
Bapak
Siapa?
Agung, dari Bapak Agung Purwando.
Apa pertanyaannya?
Purwandono, Pak Hari, di
Ah.
daerah seringkali seorang wartawan harus meliput semua tema, tidak hanya lingkungan. Padahal untuk menulis tema lingkungan seringkali tidak cukup hanya 1-2 kali tulisan. Bagaimana cara atau tips seorang jurnalis tetap mengerjakan isu lain tetapi juga masuk di spesialisasi lingkungan?
Oke, gini. Semoga Mas Agung ini bukan alat produksi industri media ya, yang sehari harus bikin 10 berita, pendek-pendek segala macam berita. Oke, gini strateginya. Kalau Sabtu Minggu libur kan? Dalam sehari bikin berapa banyak? Saya itu dalam sehari itu bisa bikin satu liputan cukup mendalam. Dalam sehari pergi ya. Itu paling tidak pulang itu dulu waktu masih full time, saya minimum bikin 1 tulisan panjang mendalam. Atau dalam seminggu itu saya akan tambahkan lagi 2 tulisan tambahan. Itu jadi skill, kemampuan teman-teman meliput dan menulis harus ditingkatkan. Itu satu. Yang kedua, coba dilihat misalnya oh saya harus bikin liputan ekonomi. Lihat ada tidak angle lingkungannya. Ambillah angle lingkungannya. Ada ekonominya, ada. Kalau ada angka kan editor ekonomi sudah suka itu. Tapi yang diangkat itu persoalannya ini misalnya tambang itu kan ada aspek ekonominya toh. Tapi yang mana yang lebih dominan? Kan ada lebih banyak isu lingkungannya. Masukkanlah ekonominya, tapi coba dilihat siapa yang diuntungkan misalnya. Kalau kita bicara masalah aktivitas industri, ekonomi, itu ada istilahnya external costs. External cost, misalnya ambil contoh. Teman-teman biasa mengkonsumsi produk-produk dengan kemasan plastik, loh. Teman-teman berpikir tidak? Sekian persen uang yang kita keluarkan untuk membeli produk itu adalah untuk bayar kemasan plastik. Lalu plastiknya dibuang. Siapa yang kemudian harus mengatasi persoalan sampah plastik itu? Pemerintah. Pemerintah uangnya dari mana? Dari kita juga. Ada iuran sampah toh. Pengolahan sampah pakai uang kita juga. Artinya kita 2 kali bayar produk itu. Sebenarnya sudah ada undang-undang mengenai sampah. Perusahaan-perusahaan yang menghasilkan kemasan plastik itu harus mengambil kembali plastik-plastik itu diolah. Tidak boleh tidak diambil. Tapi perusahaan-perusahaan ini memberikan dana untuk bank sampah. Biarlah bank sampah yang ngambil plastik itu. Itu kan strategi yang salah juga. Ya. Jadi, coba lihat angle-nya, angle lingkungan. Apapun isu yang harus diliput oleh editor. Dan itu lebih menarik menurut saya dibandingkan ekonomi. Oh, ekonomi harga kebutuhan pokok naik. Itu kan ekonomi. Coba dilihat angle-nya. Kenapa itu naik? Ada tidak kos-kos lain yang kalau kita minum misalnya, minum produk apapun, minuman dalam kemasan, kan kita bayar juga kemasannya itu. Kalau kita misalnya beli ayam potong, berapa sih ayam potong? Itu dampak lingkungan dari tariklah sampai ke penyembelihan ayam itu di mana? Pusat penyembelihan ayamnya. Seperti apa pengelolaannya? Masalah kesehatannya seperti apa? Ada banyak angle yang bisa dipakai. Ya, jadi jangan terjebak hanya liputan yang standar ekonomi, ya harus ada angkanya ekonomi. Baik, saya lanjutkan dulu lagi ya. Nanti pertanyaan-pertanyaan lebih panjang bisa kita lanjutkan. Tinggal sedikit lagi ini. Oke, nah saya ingin menegaskan kembali, apa sih tugas jurnalis lingkungan? Yang paling sederhana adalah menginformasikan dan katanya mendidik, walaupun saya tidak terlalu setuju. Mendidik publik. Jurnalis itu tanggung jawabnya bukan mendidik publik, memberitahu, informing sudah benar, memberitahu publik apa sih yang terjadi, apa resikonya pada mereka. 4 pertanyaan itu tadi yang saya bilang. Kemudian banyak isu-isu lingkungan itu harus diinvestigasi. Bukan hanya yang terkait dengan kriminal dan korupsi. Tapi banyak persoalan lingkungan itu harus diinvestigasi. Kita tidak bisa sekedar bilang, oh sungainya tercemar, nggak boleh. Tahu dari mana kita sungainya tercemar? Kan kita nggak tahu kalau cuma lihat doang. Dan tanggung jawab jurnalis lingkungan adalah memantau pemerintah dan perusahaan. Apa yang mereka kerjakan, kebijakan-kebijakan apa yang mereka buat. Dan yang penting juga adalah give voice, memberikan suara pada mereka yang tidak bisa bersuara. Komunitas-komunitas, kemudian masyarakat adat, semua harus kita berikan tempat, bukan pengusaha. Pengusaha itu suaranya sudah kuat. Pemerintah itu suaranya sudah kuat. Dan kemudian yang agak sulit sedikit, bagaimana menjelaskan data saintifik dan juga pemahaman sainsnya dengan sederhana. Dan usulan termasuk program ini kan promoting solution-based journalism. Dan juga memastikan sebagai watchdog, ada yang tidak benar ini. Abuse of power. Itu juga harus kita pantau. Kurang lebih seperti itu. Sekarang kita boleh dengan pertanyaan. Silakan. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Pak Harry untuk pemaparan yang sangat komprehensif, khususnya terkait teknis bagaimana kita melakukan liputan terkait isu-isu lingkungan ataupun kita langsung terjun ke dalam sana. Dan mungkin ini Pak ada pertanyaan lanjutan dari kolom komentar, mungkin ini yang terkait menanggapi pendapat Bapak juga, bagaimana cara Bapak untuk menulis seperti yang Bapak bilang ketika masih aktif full time Bapak menulis satu berita secara mendalam, dan waktu pas udah weekend Bapak menambahkan 2 lagi berita, dan ini merupakan dan ini ada pertanyaan terkait dengan hal tersebut. Bagaimana cara Bapak bisa menyajikan isu lingkungan secara menarik dan mudah dipahami tanpa kehilangan kedalaman konteksnya, Pak, dan akurasi datanya?
Pertama, saya sebagai jurnalis lingkungan, saya harus tertarik dulu dengan persoalan lingkungan. Ya, kalau saya tidak tertarik, bagaimana audiens saya bisa tertarik? Teman-teman tertarik apa tidak? Satu itu. Kedua, bukan sekedar tertarik, oh ini penting, kemudian menyimpulkan penting. Tapi juga ada kepedulian pada lingkungan. Sehingga komitmen kita itu lebih besar. Bukan sekedar sebagai jurnalis yang sesuai dengan sesuai dengan yang diminta, udah segitu aja. Jangan, berikannya lebih. Salah satu kenikmatan menjadi jurnalis, terutama jurnalis lingkungan, adalah ketika apa yang kita laporkan itu mendorong ada perubahan kebijakan. Oh, rasanya itu luar biasa. Ada kontribusi kita pada lingkungan. Jadi kita pun harus betul-betul peduli juga dan mencoba gaya hidup yang baik juga pada lingkungan. Nanti kita diprotes. Kita tulis lingkungan harus gini, ternyata kita tidak mengikutinya. Ya, misalnya kita protes harus pakai kendaraan umum. Laporan kita mendorong publik itu menggunakan kendaraan umum, tapi kita sendiri enggak. Nah, itu kan apa istilahnya ya? Jauh dari kuali itu jauh dari api katanya. Jauh sekali, nggak mungkin akan nanti diprotes banyak orang itu. Jadi seperti itu, dan kemudian sudah tentu skill menulisnya harus ditingkatkan. Belajar mengenai bagaimana menulis storytelling, apa itu storytelling, dan bagaimana angle-nya, frame-nya yang harus kita pakai itu apa. Supaya bisa memahami dengan baik persoalan lingkungan, ya harus memahami isu-isu lingkungan itu. Kita baca. Salah satu kunci saya yang membedakan saya dengan mungkin teman-teman jurnalis lain, saya lebih banyak baca dari mereka. Baca banyak buku-buku lingkungan. Ya, itu yang akan membedakan teman-teman dari jurnalis lainnya. Kalau kita lebih banyak baca. Dan sekarang banyak sekali sumber informasi dan buku-buku juga. Kurang lebih itu jawaban saya. Yang panjangnya bisa 1 hari, bisa 2 hari sama saya, bagaimana menulis dengan baik.
Baik, terima kasih Pak Hari. Selanjutnya ada pertanyaan Pak, terkait bagaimana kan isu lingkungan itu merupakan salah satu isu yang sensitif, dan kalau bagaimana yang tadi Anumita sudah menjelaskan juga bagaimana cara kita untuk bisa tidak sangat berseberangan. Dan mungkin ini ada pertanyaan Pak dari Bapak Nanang. Jurnalis dalam menulis tidak berangkat dari pengetahuan yang kosong, apalagi untuk isu khusus seperti lingkungan atau budaya. Ketika dia menulis tentu akan tahu kemana arah tulisannya. Akhirnya dalam proses liputan dia mendapatkan temuan baru untuk mendukung pengetahuannya. Karena dengan temuan dan fakta itu, pihak tertentu merasa kecolongan. Akhirnya pihak tertentu terkesan memusuhi media tersebut. Bagaimana pendapat Bapak?
Peduli setan yang mau sikapnya memusuhi kita nggak apa-apa. Yang penting kita hanya melaporkan fakta. Ya, bukan opini loh, bukan opini. Jurnalis itu tidak melaporkan opini. Jurnalis itu hanya melaporkan fakta. Kalau semua fakta, saya sekian puluh tahun jadi jurnalis lingkungan, tidak ada yang protes tulisan saya. Ada yang nggak suka sama saya. Contohnya itu yang punya proyek reklamasi itu datang ke kantor Kompas, salaman dengan saya, aneh salamannya, saya digaruk-garuk gini. Ya itu sesuatu yang dia nggak berani protes karena semua yang saya sampaikan itu benar. Apa yang terjadi? Bagaimana mereka boleh nggak suka, tapi mereka tidak bisa membantah kalau saya salah. Ketika dibantah salah, itu karena kita tidak menyampaikan faktanya, tapi ada muncul opini-opini di situ. Bukan hanya opini kita, tapi juga opini orang lain. Ya. Dan banyak juga kita harus mempertimbangkan namanya etika. Cara penggunaan kalimat, bagaimana kita memilih kata-kata, kata mana yang harus kita pakai, itu akan membedakan laporan kita. Ketika dibaca, mereka mungkin merasa nggak suka karena informasinya fakta, mereka tidak bisa apa-apa. Tetap saja, nggak masalah itu. Ya itu salah mereka, ya, itu yang terjadi kok kita melaporkan apa adanya. Ya, kurang lebih seperti itu komentar saya.
Baik, terima kasih Pak Hari. Ada pertanyaan kembali Pak, mungkin ini 2 pertanyaan terakhir. Bagaimana peran dan kesadaran warga dalam mendukung program pemerintah dalam menekan dampak-dampak isu lingkungan, Pak? Dan bagaimana tantangannya?
Bukan tanggung jawab jurnalis. Ini yang nanya jurnalis atau bukan ini?
Ini dari peserta Pak.
Pesertanya jurnalis atau bukan? Karena kalau bertanya bagaimana partisipasi warga, itu bukan tanggung jawab jurnalis. Jurnalis itu tanggung jawab menyampaikan apa yang terjadi, semua fakta-fakta yang berhubungan dengan persoalan-persoalan yang dihadapi masyarakat. Itu mungkin tanggung jawab NGO, LSM. Tanggung jawab pemerintah sudah pasti. Karena semua persoalan yang ada di negara ini, sudah ada institusi yang harus mengatasinya. Hanya kadang-kadang mereka merasa tidak tahu. Atau sengaja tidak tahu, menunjukkan saya tidak tahu loh. Bisa seperti itu. Kejadiannya bisa seperti itu. Tanggung jawab kita adalah tadi mengawasi pemerintah. Ada nggak kebijakan yang salah? Bagaimana caranya kita protes? Sampaikan fakta-fakta di lapangan itu seperti apa? Seperti itu saja. Ya. Kalau kemudian sudah cukup senior punya kolom, bisa nulis opini di kolom, tapi dalam format misalnya essay. Ya, jadi jangan pikirkan yang bukan tanggung jawab jurnalis loh. Tanggung jawab jurnalis adalah menyampaikan fakta terkait dengan persoalan yang dihadapi masyarakat. Tanggung jawab jurnalis memberi suara pada mereka yang terdampak isu-isu lingkungan. Isu-isu yang terkait dengan kebijakan pemerintah yang dirugikan oleh kebijakan pemerintah. Sampaikan itu tanggung jawab jurnalis. Itu komentar saya.
Baik, terima kasih Pak. Dan untuk pertanyaan terakhir, bagaimana perkembangan jurnalisme di Indonesia dibandingkan negara lain khususnya dalam bidang lingkungan ini Pak? Dan apa yang harus ditingkatkan oleh jurnalis di Indonesia menurut Bapak? Karena seperti kita tahu banyak tantangan dan juga permasalahan yang terjadi dalam bidang jurnalistik.
Persoalan media dan jurnalisme. Jurnalismenya masih sama, ya. Hanya persoalannya yang mempraktikkan jurnalisme itu menghadapi berbagai tantangan. Media ini tanda petik tidak sedang baik-baik saja. Baru saja ada layoff ya, ada layoff saya baca. Layoff di salah satu media yang cukup besar. Banyak loh jurnalisnya nggak ada kerjaan. Banyak jurnalis-jurnalis yang kehilangan pekerjaan. Dan banyak yang media tidak mampu kemudian bertahan karena tidak ada pemasukan. Iklan semua pindah ke media sosial atau mendukung para influencer. Tuh. Nah, bagaimana kondisi liputan lingkungan? Sudah lebih baik dibandingkan sebelumnya. Walaupun bayangkan, ada persoalan sangat penting mengenai tambang nikel di Raja Ampat. Mana media yang mampu membayar sendiri untuk berangkat ke sana? Perlu mungkin 200 juta untuk bisa ke sana seminggu. Ya, mana ada media yang mau mendanai reporternya untuk berangkat ke sana, kemudian menghabiskan 100 juta lah, hitung 100 juta. Siapa yang mau? Adakah media yang mau? Jadi aman-aman saja itu. Kalau tidak diangkat oleh Greenpeace, mana ada orang yang tahu ada tambang di pulau kecil di Kepulauan Raja Ampat itu. Jadi kondisi media tidak sedang baik-baik saja. Sehingga juga akan terpengaruh ke liputan-liputan lingkungan yang pada dasarnya liputan lingkungan itu lebih mahal. Kalau liputan kriminal kan cuma di kota, ke polisi, ke penjara, itu saja. Kalau liputan ekonomi juga ada di seminar, wawancara direktur ini, wawancara direktur itu, oh ada data baru, penelitian baru. Hanya di situ aja. Olahraga tinggal datang ke lapangan, nonton pertandingan, wawancara sana-sini. Kalau lingkungan, liputannya di atas meja terus. Nanya orang tanya sini, itu nggak laku. Bukan liputan lingkungan itu. Liputan lingkungan harus ke lapangan. Di mana terjadi persoalan lingkungan harus ke sana. Siapa yang mau biayai? Susah kan? Jadi tidak baik-baik saja karena kondisi media tidak baik-baik. Contohnya Mongabay Indonesia atau Mongabay International. Saya kenal dengan pendirinya, Red Butler. Mongabay itu dapat dana dari NGO, dari dana-dana hibah, sehingga mampu membayar tulisan-tulisan dari kontributornya untuk isu lingkungan. Bagaimana? Media-media kecil di daerah dapat suntikan dana dari Pemda, tapi harus mengikuti apa yang diinginkan oleh Pemda liputannya. Apakah itu tanggung jawab media? Bukan. Bukan tanggung jawab media. Nah, pertanyaannya, ketika jurnalis itu tidak lebih penting atau menjadi tidak penting dibandingkan influencer, kenapa teman-teman jurnalis tidak menjadi influencer? Ya, bagaimana caranya? Banyak kok. Di internasional banyak jurnalis yang kemudian dia influencer. Tapi istilahnya bukan influencer, tapi thought leaders. Kalau influencer itu dia dibayar sesuai dengan keinginan. Kalau kita, karena kita namanya kemudian sudah bagus, jurnalisnya, karena konten-kontennya bagus, maka orang ingin di-endorse. Contohnya, teman saya Arba'in Rambe, mungkin teman-teman kenal. Fotografer mantan Kompas itu. Dia berkali-kali diminta endorsing oleh perusahaan smartphone. Kenapa enggak? Ya. Jadi, kalau ditanya bagaimana perkembangan jurnalisme lingkungan di Indonesia, sudah lebih baik. Paling tidak 15 tahun lalu saya mendirikan Society of Indonesian Environmental Journalists. Sekarang anggotanya sudah banyak. Artinya kan sudah ada perkembangan baik. Dulu saya mulai hanya cuman berapa belas orang anggotanya. Tapi sekarang sudah sekian ratus orang, ada perkembangan yang baik. Dan media sudah mulai juga memberi porsi untuk liputan-liputan lingkungan lebih banyak dibandingkan sebelumnya. Nah, itu jawaban saya, mohon maaf.
Baik,
Kalau
terima
ada yang
kasih.
tidak cocok, tidak sependapat.
Sudah komprehensif sekali Pak, maksudnya untuk pertanyaan bagaimana jawabannya dari yang pertanyaan bagaimana perkembangan dari yang sebelumnya kepada yang sekarang, dan juga terima kasih juga saya ucapkan kepada Bapak Hari atas pemaparan presentasi yang sebelumnya telah Bapak sampaikan sangat komprehensif terkait teknik pelaksanaan liputan yang di lingkungan, liputan tentang lingkungan. Saya ucapkan terima kasih sekali lagi.
Saya
Baik.
share blog saya itu, tulisan-tulisan saya yang sudah publish ada di situ, silakan dilihat untuk contoh.
Oke, baik. Terima kasih Pak Hari. Mungkin kepada teman-teman untuk bisa melihat di kolom chat terdapat link blog yang telah Bapak Hari lampirkan di kolom chat.
Ya.
Baik, terima kasih Bapak Hari
Terima
atas
kasih
kesempatannya.
sudah mendengarkan saya.
Baik, terima kasih Pak Hari. Mungkin untuk selanjutnya dalam sesi ini akan dikembalikan kepada Bapak Sachin. Kepada Bapak Sachin dipersilakan.
Oke. Terima kasih Pak Harry, itu sangat luar biasa sesinya. Saya juga mengikuti semua apa dikatakan oleh Pak Harry, sangat inspiratif. Terima kasih banyak Pak. Dan mungkin mudah-mudahan dari feedback yang kami dapat dari episode ini kami bisa share ke Bapak juga. Sekali lagi terima kasih, dan kapan kita bisa bertemu Pak? Nanti saya juga senang hati untuk bertemu dengan Pak.
Boleh.
Ya. Oke Pak, thank you so much. Also thank
Thank you.
you to all the other speakers and also Ambassador Sandeep. And I would like to really appreciate the work done by Tafa as the moderator. He's done a great job, and also Ibu Tika, who's put the program together. Thank you very much. Terima kasih. Everybody have a great weekend.
Thank you so much Pak Sachin for your closing. Thank you so much Pak Hari
Thank
sudah
you.
dapat hadir. Terima kasih.
Kalau boleh pertanyaan yang ada di chat itu dikirim ke saya, nanti saya coba jawab.
Siap Pak,
Ya.
sudah dicatat untuk pertanyaan-pertanyaan.
Ya.
Ya,
Terima kasih.
baik. Terima kasih Pak Hari,
Terima
terima kasih
kasih.
Pak Sachin, terima kasih Mr. Ambassador.
Have a good weekend.
Have a good
Yes.
weekend tuh Pak.
Pak.
Terima kasih kepada seluruh
Oke.
peserta yang telah hadir, dan jangan lupa untuk mengisi daftar hadir yang telah disampaikan oleh panitia dari India News Desk.
Thank you. Bye.
Terima kasih.